Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be painting this loose watercolor window with some flowers. So grab your paints and let's begin. For supplies today I have 26 by 18 centimeter watercolor block. This is by Bao Hong. You can find them on AliExpress or even on Amazon. I then have a size 6 Da Vinci rounded top brush. I have a Paul Rubens size 4 mop brush. I have a Pro Art liner brush, so you can use any liner brush for this particular tutorial. We're just going to use it for a few things at the end, but any liner brush will work. And then I've also just got this large brush just to wet the page in the beginning. For colours, I have all the materials will be listed in the description box, but just to take you through it, I have Ultramarine, this is by Winsor & Newton, I have Azure Blue by White Nights, Sepia by Winsor & Newton, Undersea Green by Daniel Smith. I then have Permanent Rose mixed with Cadmium Orange, both by Winsor & Newton, Burnt Sienna by Daniel Smith, and then this is just a little bit of Ultramarine and Permanent Rose mixed in together for our shade colour. Okay, so going in, I've not put a masking tape because I do have a watercolor block, so the paper is glued around all sides. If you just have a loose piece of paper, then I do recommend putting the masking tape to hold the paper down. So I'm just gonna go in with my brush and I'm just gonna go on by starting to wet the paper first. So, going in with my mop brush, I'm going to start off by taking my Permanent Rose and Cadmium Orange mix, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to brush that all around, just avoiding the window and where we're going to have the flowers coming down. So just towards the top. And when you begin a watercolor painting, you want to initially start thinking about where in the in your painting are you going to have your light source from. So in this case, I want my light source to be coming from above and coming down. So I have to think that everything towards this side is going to be light and everything towards the bottom half is going to be dark. So here I'm going to make my wall darker, and here I'm going to make it lighter. And you can already begin to shade out the flowers. Okay, so now taking my mop brush again, just cleaning out with the water. I'm now going to begin by going in with Permanent Rose, and I'm just going to be dropping it all around like this, which is going to be creating the effect of the flowers. Some beautiful colourful flowers. And don't worry if you go over the window, that's the point. And then going with Ultramarine, I'm now going to do the same thing and drop in some blue flowers. Okay, and then taking the Undersea Green colour, I'm just going to be placing our impression of the leaves. So we're going to be mostly on the bottom, and then we're going to integrate and mix it with the other colours as well. I can see the paint is sort of going upwards, so I'm just going to hold my page at an angle just to encourage the paint to go down rather than up. And then with a clean mop brush and slightly drying it off, I'm just gonna wipe off some of the colour so we can still see our window clearly. And just remove the excess. Okay, then swapping over to our size 6 by, this is more of a firmer brush. I'm just going to go in with our shaded colour, and I'm just going to go in and add some cracks to our wall. Now this is all happening wet on wet, so this is going to dry and be quite blurry, and then we'll go in and add a more defined crack once it's all dry. Okay, that's done. And then staying with our size 6, I'm now going to go in with a very weak wash of the permanent rose. I'm just going to add this to our windows. So it's just a very light wash. And then going in with our Ultramarine and a little bit of the Azure blue, I'm going to go into our window doors, and I'm just going to add in, whilst everything is wet, I'm going to add in those lines so we get a very nice soft effect once it's all dry. And then just filling in the holes, and then going in with a little bit of burnt sienna now. I'm just going to add this to our window, the framing of it. Then taking the tiniest amount of burnt sienna, as we really don't want this to spread too much. We're just going to go in and add that to the outer part of the window. And then adding a little bit of burnt sienna inside each hole. Now going back in with our permanent rose, we're just going to add a little bit more of some flowers and just go in and darken it as it's all blended out very smooth. So now that it's almost dry, I'm just going in again where our flowers are, and I'm just going and adding over again another layer of colour, as I do want the colours to be quite vibrant. I'm not thinking about making any perfect shapes, this is loose, so we're just going in where you can see there was blue, just go in and add some more blue using just light strokes and dabs. And then I'm just going to take a clean brush and just make the edges a little bit more loose. as I don't want it to be perfectly neat. Okay, so we're going to leave that to dry and then we'll go on to the window. So now that most of the page is dry, some of the flowers are still wet, but that's okay. I'm going to go in again with a weak wash of permanent rose, and I'm just going to lightly drag my brush across like so, just to give a bit of texture. So if you're using rough or cold pressed paper, if you use your brush flat, what you'll get is it will miss some of the little bumps, and then it gives this effect of a really nice textured effect. That looks lovely. So then, taking my Azure blue, I'm now just going to go over the frames of the windows, of the window blinds, just to darken them slightly and add a bit more contrast. And then taking in my burnt sienna, I'm going to go around the main frame of the window. Then I'm going to go in now with Sepia, and I'm going to go around this larger part of the painting, of the frame, sorry. And this is our first wash, and then we're going to go over again with the second wash to make wherever we want to add shadow, to make it darker, as if the sun was reflecting down on the window. And then also taking Sepia, I'm going to go in between the blinds. Swapping to my Pro Art liner brush, I'm going to go in with a little bit of Sepia, and where we have these sort of grey mark with a crack line, I'm just going to go in and add a more defined crack. I'm using a very light hand, and I'm almost patting the brush into the paper, and then going in again with a dry brush and a little bit of our wall color, which is permanent rose and cadmium orange. I'm just gonna drag it over the paper and just add some texture. Okay, now that it's mostly dry, I'm going to go in with a saturated amount of color now. So I'm going to start on the window here with the sepia. So I'm going to be taking the color directly from the pan, putting a little bit onto my palette just to make sure I don't have too much. And then I'm going to be going over wherever I want my shadow. So in this part of the window, it is mostly all dark. So we're going to cover it completely with a darker color. And then for this side, we're just going to lightly cover slightly. So it is going to be a lighter shadow. And that's just using less pigment. Now for the Azure blue, same thing. We are going over. We're going to get more concentrated amount. And I'm just going to be brushing over halfway to add the contrast. I'm going to do the same thing on the other window. And then for the windows, we're going to mix a little bit of ultramarine and some permanent rose, and we're just gonna brush over half of the window for that shadow effect. And the same thing for inside the blinds. We're going to go for a darker effect towards the top and leaving the bottom to be light. And then taking the same shade color of cobalt blue and permanent rose, I'm going to go in just under the flowers, and I'm going to create the shade in a very rough style. Under the box, under the flower box, sorry. Like so. And then lastly, I'm going to swap over to my size 2 brush. I'm going to take in the Undersea Green, and I'm going to line the window. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Give this video a like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next tutorial.